Hi, my name's Dan Cohen. I'm a pediatrician who works down in Westchester. I actually have a family up here in Mahopac, and I'm here to talk to you today about the risks and consequences of vaping. Vaping, as we know, is a way of delivering tobacco in a newfangled way that is very attractive to the youth. And I'm going to briefly go over some of the concepts of vaping, and then after that, the most important part of this talk is really how do we talk to our kids about vaping. It seems like more of an idea that should be born in. It should be more inherent to the children because they've known about things like cigarettes since they were 3. So why did this become so popular and how can we stop it? So first, vaping are electronic cigarettes. You don't really need to know much more than that. They're an oil-based compound that has nicotine in it, and it's a nicotine delivering system. And probably one of the things that's most disturbing about it, it's a delivery system that's made with a flavor. And the flavors, if you go online to look at these things, the flavors come from anything that look like a candy store to a place where you go order breakfast. They have breakfast cereal, creme brulee, coffee flavored, blueberry lemonade. You can get any flavor, including candy flavors. So we now have a nicotine candy flavored delivery system that was made and delivered to teens. It is a very addictive substance. It gets delivered very well through the lung in a water vapor based system. And what I'm going to talk about right now is the way that they actually marketed to the children. So in marketing, about 75% of the business in the United States is from one company. It's a company called Juul. It's Juul. At this point, we all know how to spell it, but if you go back about 4 years ago, your kids knew before you did. Juul is a very effective delivery system. It's a nicotine salt that gets absorbed very well, and it is unbelievably addictive. And the quote that I'm sure your kids in the schools will know at this point is that 1 Juul has the equivalent nicotine to about 20 cigarettes or a pack. The thing about nicotine in general is that nicotine is an effective pain reliever, and it is very addictive because it delivers a dopamine surge to your body that's very short-lived. So it makes you feel good very quickly and then fades very quickly. And so you need it over and over again. You add that to a flavor with a device that's easily carried, that's chargeable with a phone charger, and can be hidden quite easily. And it doesn't do smoke, and now you have a perfect medium to deliver this nicotine to a vulnerable population. So that's the brief thing about Juul. There are many other forms of vaping devices, but we don't have to go into that. They're all kind of the same concept, and Juul is the biggest thing in the market. So if you're not aware of that, the rest of it is just kind of corollaries off that topic. But as I said, my view into this was how to talk to kids about it. And one way to talk to kids, I work for a company called WestMed down in Westchester. I see kids in Scarsdale and all those areas, but I live up here in Mahopac, and it's the same story everywhere. I've spoken in Connecticut. It's the same story everywhere. And the one thing I would tell you, you don't talk to kids like you're a doctor. Because what happens is I always say, if I ever caught my children trying to vape, and I walked in there, I have that first instinct that the first thing I would do would blow up. I've only been talking to them since they were 3 about cigarettes, so why in the world would I possibly think that they would vape? And the truth is, I hope they wouldn't. But if they did, screaming at them, which is our impulse, only scares them. And what I really would think about is why. So I actually have heard and seen many stories. I'm going to lead off with 3 anecdotes of patients that I've had. The first one, and my favorite story, is I got a call from a mother of a teenage boy. He's 17. And she called me at 1 o'clock in the morning. And the first word she said over the phone is, "Can I let him vape one more time?" Well, what happened was 3 days prior to that, they found in his room Juuls and a bunch of chargers and vaping liquids in the room. And they took it all from him. 2 days later, this teenage athlete was sitting on his bed crying, shaking, and vomiting. Not because he had his Juul taken away, because he was in florid withdrawal after only 4 months of vaping. And she wanted to know, could she let him Juul one more time to stop the withdrawal symptoms, because they were that severe. So I told her at that point, I don't know anybody who's ever died of nicotine addiction, so she could probably just let him ride through it. She thanked me and hung up the phone. I don't know how he actually did after that, but I'm sure it was a very tough night. The second anecdote I have was my own. I was jogging around my neighborhood, doing a run around the street. And I remember growing up when I was 17 and jogging around, seeing cigarette butts everywhere. Well, if you ever go jogging around your home in either Putnam or Westchester County, take a look at the sides of the road. You don't see many cigarettes on the side of the road anymore, but I guarantee you see Juul pods. And parents may not know what they look like, but if you look up, Google the word Juul pod. It's a little plastic device that's a little square that usually has a trivial bit of oil liquid in it. They are everywhere. And it just gives you an extent of how epidemic this issue with juuling is. The final thing is, I heard a story of a group of people at a friend's house, and the parent walked downstairs because all the friends were hanging downstairs, and they saw this one girl dive for the outlet on the wall. She's like, well, what was that? She goes, oh, it was my phone charger. I was getting it. That's something else just to make yourself aware that this stuff is so easy to be hidden. And what we're going to talk about now is when I heard these three crises in my own head, the first thing I did was try to decide how to learn about them. So just like any good student, you do the who, what, when, where, and why of juuling. So the who, and this is one of the very important things I would teach any parent. It's not who you think. It's every kid. All these kids. This isn't something that it's the person where you'd say they would never try this. It can be athletes, honors students, the shy kid in the corner, the captain of the football team. I've heard stories of entire teams, hockey teams, crew teams, lacrosse teams that were kicked out of school because they all vaped, because they don't believe that this stuff is dangerous. The what is the Juul, like I said, is about 70% of this market, but there's other devices, and not only do they vape nicotine, but they can vape marijuana. These things are small. The Juul looks like a USB drive, and you can find them almost anywhere. The when do kids do this? And schools in the area will tell you that this is unbelievably epidemic. I remember 4 or 5 years ago, my own son would come home and tell people that he saw people in class during movies doing this. There are now kids in the bathroom all the time that aren't going to the bathroom, and the schools are really struggling with how to fix this situation. Some schools are installing vapor devices because they're not smoke as a way of detecting this. It can be done anytime, anywhere, and it's very small. And one little trick is kids tend not to have their own. They tend to share it between 4 of them to defer the cost. The why they do it is the main crux of my talk, so I'm going to take a second and push that away. And the how is, like I said, they can hide in the bathroom or any place you can find this stuff. How do they get it? It's usually done online. But you can buy them in vape stores around. Even though they're supposed to be illegal, they usually find ways, just like kids find ways of getting alcohol. So they can get this stuff virtually anywhere. So the why kids do it fits right in with what are the health risks of it. So one thing to think about when you're thinking about whether your child is at risk for vaping, the first thing is I would tell you that they all are. As you probably recognize, there's a huge increase in anxiety in the United States today with children. Nicotine is one of the most potent pain relievers known to man. And so if your child has ADD, anxiety, if they're concerned, and just being a teenager from 7th grade on is a period of huge angst. And then they get exposed to something that they'll have a friend. And that's the thing. It's a friend, not someone who would ever hurt them, not someone that would ever cause them harm or think they're doing anything bad. Present them with this scenario. Let's say, I want to show you this. My brother gave it to me. It's a Juul. This one's blueberry flavored, but I have other ones that are lemonade. And I have this other one that's like bubble gum. It's only water vapor. And it's not even smoke, so it won't hurt your lungs. I even have asthma and it doesn't hurt my lungs. My dad actually uses it to quit smoking, and I went online to check, and I heard it's 95% safer than cigarettes. And then I pause, and I'll look to my patient and say, what's wrong with what that person said? And they all go, oh, he's lying, he's not being honest. I say, no. The problem is, all that is true. The British Medical Journal actually, there was a study done out of Britain, it's 95% safer than smoking. So that seems like it gives you implicit reason to do it. But what I try to tell everyone is 95% safer doesn't mean safe. It's equivalent to saying, is it better to jump out of the 80th story or the 50th story of a building? It may sound safer, but you're not less dead. This has the same chemicals that cigarettes do, to a lesser degree. But if you have something that is thought to be safe, tastes good, gives you a bit of a head rush and a calming effect, and you can hide it so easily, you're guaranteed to do more. So whether you're doing one cigarette or 2 or 20 of them when you're vaping, you're getting the same effect in the long run. And although there are no long-term studies, science is starting to recognize some of the effects. They have done studies on rats and mice that are showing some of the effects that it does. But what we're starting to see is some people reacting to the oils. There's a condition called Bronchiolitis Obliterans, which has the word obliterate in it, so it's obviously not good, where you inhale this lung and you get a vigorous inflammatory reaction in your lung, and I have seen kids hospitalized for that. This is not common, however, and your child is not going to know that because you're only going to see the successes around him. And when you have him getting from a source that he trusts, saying that my dad's using it to quit smoking, that it's bubblegum flavored, that it's 95% safer, why would you possibly say no? So we lost a whole 4 or 5 years of this because parents weren't aware of its existence. It didn't go through regular media. It went through YouTube. It went online. It went through music that people found, the kids found out about this. Adults never knew. But now we do. So how can we stop this? The most important thing is stopping it is educating. Kids aren't stupid. And actually, I think when I start talking to them about the risks and what's going on and how addictive it is, the children feel embarrassed. They realize they've been tricked. And these companies, what I'll say to them, I go, have you ever heard of a flavored cigarette outside of menthol? It's actually illegal in the United States to do that. But these companies were able to get away with it by running away from the FDA for a while. And right now they're trying to catch up. They're actually right now in Congress having meetings to show that the people from Juul utilized a Stanford toolkit used to quit smoking, altered it so they can then market it to children to know how to get it to them the most effectively. Juul was designed, and they'll tell them it was designed to help parents get off smoking. It sounds very benevolent. But if you think that through, that is not a good business model. Creating something that quits smoking means they're quitting that. They did this to get to the kids. And maybe that wasn't their direct effect, but if it wasn't, it was short-sighted. So we have to talk to our children from a very young age. Don't be embarrassed about talking to a 3-year-old just like you would about cigarettes, about vaping. I start making sure in my office I introduce it when the kids are 9 or 10. I have them explain what it is to their parents. And I will confront adolescents, not to whether they do, but how much they know about it. This is vital. As I said, when you're running on the street and all you see are Juul pods around, those are only like when you see one mouse in your house, there's always about 100 more. If you see these things littered around like garbage, be sure that it's there and never doubt the exposure to your child. It's almost every kid that's been exposed to this by the time they're in 7th or 8th grade. And it is dangerous, and it's remarkably addictive, mostly because we have these brains that we're trying to mold with education. Nicotine is trying to mold into something addictive. That brain is being treated for anxiety with this short burst of dopamine that makes them feel better and fades, and then they need it. As a final kind of closing, if you want to kind of get a good article of this, sit down with your own time, use it as a conversation piece for your teenagers. The New York Times has a group of articles on this, and the best one I read was one about, it's called The Price of Cool. The Price of Cool is about a teenage boy who he was like honors student, athlete, the whole thing. And he started vaping when he was like 14. He tried to quit for 6 months, came back to it. By the time he was 16, he was vaping consistently. And even when he went away with his parents, he would steal their car to go get it. Now, this sounds like the unbelievable story that they're using to fulfill the message of how dangerous this is. This happens all the time. So be aware, talk to your kids early, and then when they find that they have a problem, consult your pediatrician, talk about a psychologist, because we're still working on how to help these kids. Most of it's going to be through therapy and getting there, but we have to stop it before it starts. Nicotine is one of the most addictive substances we know, and we'd really like to stop this if we can. Thank you for your time, and if you have any questions, please feel free. My name's Dan Cohen. I work down at WestMed down in Purchase. You can find me online, and thank you for your time.